Start Me Up, the flagship show here at Unlock the Middle. Josh Tobat, Prop Principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA, Texas. Ready to reach out to all of you out there because we started already. You guys in New England, you're still chilling a little bit. All of us here in the South, we're already rolling every week, bringing our kids in. So we need you part of this conversation. It's crucial because you know what? We're still recovering from that thing that happened a couple years ago. It keeps on rolling and rolling forward. And we need to use all our tools for success because we're all in the same business, the kid business, the future of America. So if you are in Alaska or you're in Hawaii, blessings to you in Hawaii, prayers to you in Hawaii. Everything that's going on, we love you. We're thinking about you. Everyone should be praying for them every single last day. If you are in Maine or Florida or anywhere in the 48 middle, we need you. If you're seeing this on the rebroadcast, please share it and like it. We need you guys to like it because you know what? We have an awesome guest and you know, iron sharpens iron. What do you think about that, Dean Packard in Massachusetts?
Iron sharpens iron is absolutely correct. Josh Tovar, thank you so much for the great introduction. Once again, my name is Dean Packard, proud principal of Bay Path Vocational Technical High School in Charlton, Massachusetts, one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. And tonight, we're not going to disappoint again as we're going to find another golden nugget out there in the world of education that's making positive ripples and making people around her better, man. This is why I love Sunday nights, Josh. You know, whether we have Dave Burgess, Todd Whitaker, or people from around the country have been on this show. And tonight is going to be another thing we look at through the lens of what you and I do each and every day, that principal's lens, and how this individual has risen to the point of getting not just a national principal of the year, but also a state level principal of the year. And that excites me, Josh. How have you been, man? It's nice to see you. Happy Sunday night to you.
Thank you. It's been great. Like I said, we already started school.
Yeah, how's that going?
Days,
very quickly. How's that going? All right. Yeah.
Huh?
Well, you say we're behind. We're lagging behind. You keep saying, is that what you're saying in New England?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about that. But you know, we still get our 180 in one way or another.
Oh, exactly, we all do, and it's a fabulous thing having everybody back with that energy, and it's about that sustainable energy at the beginning to ensure that the people that sit in our chair continue that blast through the whole 180 days. So for the first 4 days, it was fabulous. No issues. Well, one hiccup with kids, but you know what? It happens. You know, kids are kids and this stuff happens.
Absolutely.
But that's what we are. We're in the kid business and we need to understand, reshape, refocus to make sure that they're ready to go for their
adjust and adapt. We use those two words as well. I hate to use those because they're synonymous with COVID, but we never have to go back down that road again. But forget about that for a second. Let's shift gears and let's bring in our guest tonight, Donna Hayward from the great state of Connecticut. Donna, welcome to the show. So happy to have you with us. How are you this evening?
I'm great, Dean. Thanks so much. Hey, Josh.
So do you guys know each other? I should ask this. Have you met Josh before? If you did, I'm sorry about that because Josh is kind of just like rubs you. I don't know, the right way, wrong way. I don't know, man, but I know he's out there everywhere.
Yeah, I actually met Josh in Denver at the Ignite National Conference. So we've seen each other.
Oh, God. All right. So I'm behind the eight ball with this one already. So let's get this party started. So, Donna, first and foremost, welcome to the show. You know, Josh and I both moonlight as a principal, so we know what you have to deal with each and every day. But you are, you know, you got some special accolades behind you. You've done some things to bring some, we'll call it the bright sunshine, to recognize the things that you do. And I absolutely love that as a servant leader because you know what? That's why we get into this business, to make people around us better. So before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about, let us know about you as a student. How were you as a student, and how did you approach school as a youth? I mean, look, you're sitting at the top seat as a principal right now. How did you view yourself coming through the whole system?
So I grew up in a really small town in Vermont, in rural Vermont. So my graduating class was 40 students strong. We marched 2 by 2 on the town green. So just to kind of give you an idea of how I grew up and the small field that my high school must have had and did have. So I was a good student. I loved school. I loved going to school. Frankly, in rural Vermont, it's kind of the center of your universe because it's the only way you get to see other humans. So I loved it. And that being said, I didn't think I was going to teach. I went off to college to Smith to do, I didn't know what. Friends had suggested that I teach, and I was like, no, that's too obvious. And but then over the 4 years, I obviously changed my mind, and I'm delighted to be in school forever. So.
Well, Smith College is a great school with a great reputation.
Thank you.
Again, and that's in the western part of our state, and So at what point did you know it was going to be education? I mean, how did it, did it change? Were you looking at a trajectory to do something else? And all of a sudden you said, boom, we're going to stick with the educational path?
Yeah, actually, I thought I was headed to law school after college. Really glad I didn't make that decision. And so late in the spring, I think it was my junior year maybe of college, I got the strangest phone call. I got a call from my own high school math teacher. That's weird, right? Junior year of college to get a call from a high school math teacher. And he basically had this great opportunity. He had a chance to travel abroad for the last month of school. I don't know the details of that. I can't remember them, but he basically said that the principal had given him permission to go if he could find his own sub. And so he was calling on me because he remembered that I loved math and he thought for whatever reason I could teach it. And so he invited me back to sub in my own high school for the last month of school. So I did it. I absolutely loved it. It was weird subbing in my own high school. But then I returned to Smith in the fall for my senior year, which is kind of late to change your major. So I didn't. But kind of having made the decision that I thought I would pursue a career in education after I graduated. So I did.
So you haven't looked back once since, because you've gotten right to the top of the seat. And then all of a sudden, like I said earlier, you're making a difference for everybody around you. So good stuff right there. Josh.
So as math teacher, will talk to us about the math thing. History teachers and math teachers, we have different conversations. When we're
different
together,
mindset. Way different mindset.
We really, hey, Principal Cafele, welcome, Jefe. What led you? Was it a high school thing in regards to you becoming the math teacher? Was it because of his encouragement? Why math?
So I had actually started out as a math major in college. I switched it. I changed up to a philosophy major, of all things, right? And then kept the math minor. So then when I decided I was going to go into education and I needed to go back to get a master's degree because I hadn't majored in education or even majored in math, I thought about what I really liked in terms of a subject. I thought about my favorite teachers, and some of them are math teachers. Some of them are history teachers, Josh. So some of the best people. So anyway, so I went back to get my master's and filled out my math credits, and I love math. So I decided to teach math for a while at the high school level.
How long, what subjects, how long were you there?
So I was at Farmington High School for 5 years. And actually I entered administration a lot earlier than I anticipated. I went to school to be an administrator and finished the University of Connecticut Administrator Preparation Program, UCAP, they call it. And then part of that program, they require you to go on interviews at the end. It's kind of part of your training. So fine, I went on interviews. Well, I accidentally got hired and kind of loved the school that I got hired in. And so I left the classroom sooner than I would have chosen, but it was a wonderful school. I loved my first high school was Rocky Hill High School, and they were just amazing people. And it was a tremendous 10 years and haven't looked back.
I love it. And just like you, the very first time I ever substituted was at my alma mater in high school. That was totally weird. My first gig was that the lady said, hey, I told her I was doing some student teaching hours, and I gave her, hey, I could substitute whenever you need me here at my alma mater. And she said, hey, can you sub in the afternoon? Perfect. I mean, it's something else being the sub next to the teacher that you used to have.
And you never get over calling them like Mr. or Mrs. whoever, ever. Like, it's never going to be a first name basis as long as you live. So there's
exactly.
That.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'm back at my alma mater now at being a principal where I graduated from. So when you go full circle and come back and try to make a difference, that's where the whole thing about education is all about. It's like coming home, and that's why that kind of drives us all in what we do. So here's my question for you, Donna. As a teacher and an administrator, what inspired you, and what kept you going through the tough times? Because you know what, as you go from being a teacher into administration, it's not easy. Everybody thinks that's just a simple transition. It truly isn't. I mean, you want to talk about sometimes being in a silo. We try to break silos down for educators, but in administration, you're in a silo unless you have a really strong administrative team. And that's what kind of keeps you going. But I'll let you answer that question from your vantage point.
Sure. So I think I've had a lot of different inspiration over the years, and, depending on what's going on and where you are in your own phase of life, your inspiration shifts. My original inspiration to even go into administration was my own high school principal, a wonderful, talented man named Bill Pollock. He was my high school principal in Vermont. And he, my junior year, actually my senior year, left to start his own school to include girls in Kuwait, of all places, from Vermont to Kuwait, right? Strange.
Wow. Yeah.
He was there for years, built a school. It was up and running. It was flourishing. And he came home unbeknownst to him on what would be the day before the first Iraq War. And his school was destroyed. And so after the war was over, he went back to Kuwait and rebuilt his school, restarted it. And I thought and I had always adored this guy. He was a phenomenal leader, had a great relationship with him as a student. You know, it was a small, again, community feel to my school. So students had that relationship with their administrator. And I just remember thinking, that's drive. Like, there's something to this. This man like went halfway around the world, built a school, it got ruined, went back and did it again. The work he's doing is important. So he was an inspiration for sure. And then over the years, you know, the inspiration is my kids, and then my own daughter, one of the most important inspirations, because, you know, we're building the world that she's going to live in. And now she's 21 and beautiful and wonderful. So she's arrived on her own. But as she was growing up, she was a main source of inspiration. I wanted teachers in my school that I would put my own daughter in their class. I wanted a community and an educated society that I wanted her to live in. So, and then of course, all of my own students who I just love and adore and want the best for.
So Donna, I'm going to back up for a second, and I'm going to ask you, what specifically did you like about that high school principal that you mentioned? Okay, what was it? I mean, obviously he was everything. He kind of brought you to a new place. But what, besides the fact that he had the ability to go overseas, start his own school, things of that nature, what did you see in him that you said, someday I'm going to be like that?
Right. So he was the kind of leader who, he didn't come in looking, well, he probably did, but it didn't look like he didn't march in to be the leader. He didn't enter the room as the boss, not at all. He entered the room as a member of the community. He listened deeply to people that he led. He had great relationships with his teachers. You could see whenever he walked into a classroom, the teachers just adored this man. And he did have high standards. I remember he had this thing where he told the school community if ever he was angry, he would wear his red tie. It was just little things like that, right? So if the kids had, I don't know, screwed up, or the seniors had pulled some prank or whatever, he might don his red tie for a day, although it never really lasted a day. So little things like that. And I remember we were in some school. This is just a tiny thing that I remember. But again, I don't want to say how many years ago this was, like 5 or 10 that I got out of high school, right? And I remember one day we had an assembly on school culture and what have you. And I remember he took out his red tie and he said it was time to not have an angry tie anymore. And he cut his tie in half, and the whole school went crazy because everybody knew about his red tie. So he was just a phenomenal leader. So he had relationships with the kids he served. He had relationships with the adults he served alongside. And isn't it all about relationships after everything at the end of the day? So
it sure is. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So in the classroom, you started off not thinking that was your pathway, but you know, someone needed to encourage you and guide you, and you looked up to somebody. So you had worn many different hats: assistant principal, classroom teacher, and now the current role that you're doing. Who are your role models at those different levels? Who inspired you to just keep on going because at different stages we need different people. Me, I need this guy next to me. He just totally inspires me every single last day. I'm oozing leadership because I'm next to him. So wow, who inspires you?
Oozing leadership. Wow, Dean, that's
powerful. I didn't even know I had that capacity.
Yeah. A lot of people inspired me. So I had a fantastic mentor in my preparation program, a man by the name of Mike Buckley. He was fantastic. He was a talented veteran high school leader. And he was just, again, the model of a person who can build relationships and lead people seemingly effortlessly, right? We all know it's not effortless. There's a lot of energy that goes into building those relationships and sustaining them, especially through tough times or through change that maybe not everybody is on board with, or what have you. Difficulties of all different types, but he was an inspiration for sure. And then I have had the wonderful luck of working alongside great leaders. So my first principal, when I was hired as an assistant principal, was a man named Bob Pataco. These are all humans I'm still friends with. We still have dinner, every few months, and they're happily retired now, but still rooting for me and I them in their next stage and all the fun that they're having in retirement. And I also worked for a fantastic superintendent who I have to mention by the name of Dr. Cam Vautour, who was just the epitome of balanced leadership. He assembled his team around him. And then he was the kind of guy who, first of all, he raised me as a servant leader. So I really understood what it was like, what it meant to be a servant leader and not just the boss. But he was gifted in assembling a team around him and then getting out of their way, supporting us, but getting out of our way and being there to support, to guide, to coach, to mentor, but really lead as a circle of dedicated humans and not just one guy at the helm. So he was fantastic. There have been so many.
How many years did you work under that superintendent?
10.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Thank you.
So Donna, sidebar question. You said the word servant leader. For all those principals out there who just got that role, now they're eager to wear that badge of being the principal. Can you please tell them what servant leader might mean? So maybe they can just in their roadmap change trajectory a little bit, because I remember being that first year principal and I remember not understanding maybe what servant leadership was all about.
Sure. So, and it's hard to stick the landing on that until you really, really get it and understand how much being a servant leader really accomplishes what you're hoping for your kids and for your school communities. So being a servant leader means being there before everyone in the morning and being there after everyone at night. It means doing all those things that other people don't necessarily want to do. It means listening deeply to the people that you serve and listening for what they're saying as well as what they're not saying. It means being the one in the room who speaks last, right? So one of the first things I learned when I was an administrator, and you learn it usually in an unfortunate way, is that everybody's all of a sudden listening to you, right? So all of a sudden I would make an offhand joke or I would say whatever, and people would react like they're all about whatever it is I'm saying. So I realized that if I talked in a meeting or spoke or gave an opinion or put in my thoughts, it tended to dampen the thoughts of others percolating in the room because, well, the leader had spoken and therefore they would just try to get on board with whatever I was saying. So I had to learn really quickly to speak last, eat last after everybody else has eaten, and to really try to make a place for teachers to teach where I could get the things that don't have anything to do with teaching and learning out of the way. Handle the discipline, handle the budget, handle the physical plant, handle the, maybe the parent that's gotten a little upset and needs to be reconnected with the school community and with the teacher. It means truly thinking of yourself as a servant and not as the boss. Anybody can be the boss, but people aren't going to follow you.
That's one of the best answers I've ever heard about being servant leader. You took that one right back to an authentic foundational level. So thank you for doing that. If you're listening out there, play that over again, because that is exactly what you want to hear. So I got a couple tiers to the next couple questions that I have here. So in 2000,
Dean, real quick.
Yeah.
David has just joined us right there.
Hey, Texas.
Her sidekick at NASSP, Texas Principal of the Year. Greetings, David. Thank you for being here.
We've had David on before as well, right? Yes, we have.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Great.
Awesome. Great to have you with us, David. So I'm going to just circle back for a second, and thank you for taking that time to recognize David, Josh. Appreciate that as well. So in 2022, you were titled the Connecticut's Principal of the Year. Let's start there for a second before I get into my question. Talk about the rise to that and kind of what that title meant to you professionally, because I'll tell you what, it's really good to be recognized, but I also know the greatest leaders, they are very humble. And you know what? They see titles and they see accolades as an opportunity to shine the goodness on a lot of people. So how did that make you feel receiving that title in Connecticut?
Well, so that was phenomenal, right? Who wouldn't absolutely love that? To me, that was a lifetime achievement. I was very happy being the Connecticut Principal of the Year. It really, it was kind of just the pinnacle of a lot of years of work. So in terms of what it meant for me, I mentioned my mentor, Mike Buckley, early in the conversation. One of the last things he said to me before I left his building to start my first administrative position was, Donna, join the Connecticut Association of Schools. Join this professional network. So the Connecticut Association of Schools, or CAS as we know it in Connecticut, is the NASSP's Connecticut affiliate. And so I did. Mike told me to do it. I did it. Didn't really understand why that was important. Started to join the committees, the assistant principals committee and the awards committee and the high school board, and served for years and years. And in so doing, networked with wonderful humans in Connecticut, wonderful, talented leaders with whom I could exchange ideas, who I could support and who supported me over the years. And we all know how important that is. It's a lonely gig, right? So there have to be your circle of friends that you can reach out to and who will be honest in their constructive feedback and tell you when you need to pivot or guide you when you're too in the weeds and you can't see a solution. So for years and years, and right up to today, I served CAS in various roles right up through and including being the president for a couple of years. So it was interesting because for years I had actually been on the awards committee and helped choose the state principal of the year. And I met incredible leaders and was just always so inspired by their work and so happy to honor them and celebrate them. So it was just really weird and strange in a fantastic kind of way when I had stepped down from those positions. I had served my years and had pivoted to some different work in the state, and they tapped me. So it was pretty fantastic. Still is.
There's got to be more to it than that, because that's a humble response there at the end, because I'm sure your roots were very deep within them. So let's fast forward very quickly to 2023. NASSP's National Principal of the Year. Okay, now let's talk about how that made you feel a little bit, because there's the next level. Okay, that must were you surprised? Were you excited? I mean, obviously that is quite a badge of honor.
Well, that was ridiculous, is what that was. So when I was, as I mentioned, as state principal of the year, I was, that I didn't think about another thing. It was great. I was doing my work. I was very happy. I was very humbled, incredibly appreciative. And to be honest, I probably shouldn't say this, but I forgot that the National Principal of the Year was a thing. I just kind of forgot. I don't know. I was busy doing my work. And I think I told the story in Denver about how I got this mysterious email that didn't say NASSP and didn't say Ron Nozoe and didn't say anybody's name I recognized, but basically said that it was someone who wanted to interview me about some of my work. And I mean, we get these emails every now and then. And I actually thought it was a thinly veiled sales pitch of some sort. And so, because we get those emails every day, right? Dozens and dozens that we just delete. So I deleted it. A couple of days later, the email comes again. Really looking to connect with you. Would like to talk to you about your work in Suffield. And I don't even work in Suffield anymore. So I was like, okay, sales guy, delete again. 3 times this happens. And finally, unbeknownst to me, I guess the NASSP reached out to my superintendent to basically say, can you get this woman to please take our call? Can you get her to log on? And so my very frazzled secretary came in and said, listen, I have somebody on the phone who really just needs to talk to you for, just a couple of minutes. Just give them a couple minutes. And so I was like, oh, fine, just to make them leave my secretary alone. So I log on to this Zoom call and there's Ron Nozoe on screen, and it's clearly the NASSP, and I am the biggest fool in the world because I had no idea what I was walking into. So that's how I found out I was a finalist. And anyone who's watched the video of me finding out knows that my complete shock was genuine. I had nothing to say, nothing to say. So, and then the rest is just a fantastic story. I met David Arancibia, who's on tonight, Texas State Principal of the Year, and John Bricolet from California. And the 3 of us just became just such incredibly close friends over the course of 3 pretty intense and grueling days in DC. And so we're, that's it. the rest is history.
I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. And what an honor for you. So make sure you step back and just breathe a little bit and soak it all in, because it is a really good recognize for the fine work that you've done. So now I'm going to circle back to my actual. What do you see as some of the obstacles of public education today, and how do you feel that we're doing moving forward?
So some of the obstacles that I feel we are facing today are, first and foremost, I think, the public's opinion of educators and education. Unfortunately, thanks in large part to maybe a few politicians who don't regard educators as highly as perhaps they should, or have a understanding about some of the things that are going on in schools. I really wish some of the folks that threw the poison arrows at us would come in and see us and come into our schools and see the great work that we're doing and see the great work that our kids are doing, and how much educators truly and deeply, you don't do this job for a paycheck. You do this job because you love what you're doing and you love the humans that you're doing it for. This work is too hard to do for any other reason besides the right reasons. And so I really wish that wasn't the case, but that's where we are right now. And so we have to handle it and deal with it. And unfortunately, a few negative stories, just like in any profession, make it to the news. And, only the bad news is worth broadcasting, I guess, right? It's too bad. I think there's something about human nature that makes that true. But at any rate, that's where we are. And so we need to do a better job of telling our own story. Ron Mazzoi made that point very well in March at the advocacy conference, and says it often. And he's absolutely right. We need to start telling our own story and showcasing what we do in our schools, and showcasing our kids, and showcasing what happens 2, 3, 5, 10 years out of our schools, and where our students are. I'm a huge believer and an incredible advocate for public education specifically. And this is a foundational pillar of our democracy, our education system. And so this is critically important. This is no small deal. And so we do have to band together and do a better job of getting the message out. We are humble in our work, and we can still be humble in our work while being fierce advocates of that work and better communicators of what's going on inside our schools. I've been thinking recently I had this thought recently that I keep sort of toying around with, and I'm working on getting the actual numbers and the actual statistics. But if you think about how many teachers there are across the country, and how many principals too, but how many educators in general, so count teachers, principals, paraprofessionals, and all of the folks who serve in education, the secretaries, the school nurses, the custodians, the lunch staff, we probably outnumber most other professions, because every town, every tiny village, every great metropolis, every suburb has a school, right? And a school system. So if you think about how many of us there have to be across the country, there's probably some professions that there are more of those people doing that work than us, but I don't know, we've got to be up there. And so if we actually could coordinate our message, and actually all of us awaken to, it's time that we collaborate and coordinate messaging and really get our story out there, and our needs out there, and our mission out there. There's nothing not to love about what we're doing. There's nothing not to support about what we're doing. And so I really think that's the key, is getting folks really to unite on a common mission to tell our own story, and stop letting negative media do it for us, and stop letting the 2 or 3 negative Nellies in each town do it for us. Let's do it for ourselves.
I absolutely love that. And you're so right when you say that the narrative is going to be written by the people within the trenches. If we don't do that, we're doing a complete disservice to the whole system that we're a part of. So great stuff right there.
Right.
As you know, we have a large exodus in our field, right, in our profession. The last couple of years, that help wanted sign has been out there for a while. And so we have a lot of people transitioning from the classroom to administration to central office, so on and so forth. And so a lot of times, a lot of podcasts that we hear and a lot of past guests that we've had state that some people that end up in leadership roles are not prepared for that. So talk to that first year principal, that first year assistant principal that just left the classroom. And in some cases, some people are going from classroom to principalships that I'm hearing. So what tools can you bring from the classroom to establish in that chair that demands so much upon us, our time, our family hours, our health, all those things. So as a novice administrator out there, what advice can you give them?
I give them, I think, 3 things, or maybe 2, but I'm gonna stretch and go for 3. So the first thing I would say is, remember why you're doing this. If you've made the transition from teaching to leading, why did you do it? Because you're going to have to remember that when, you're there at 7, 7:30, 9, 10:30, you're going to have to remember why you chose to do this. Because that why is still true, even when you're too tired to remember why you made the transition. And there will be challenging times. And so you're going to have to regroup. You're going to have to course correct sometimes. And so just remembering why you did this to begin with is a big deal. Secondly, I mentioned connecting with the Connecticut Association of Schools and now the NASSP. You're going to have to network regardless of how experienced you were in the classroom, because as Dean said early in the program, it's a completely different job to teach than it is to lead in teaching. And you're going to have to network. You cannot do this alone. You don't want to do this alone. So you might be alone in your building, or maybe hopefully you have an assistant principal or an administrative team. But regardless of whether you're 1 or more, 6, 8 people in the building, you're going to have to network with people around your state and in your conference. If you have an athletic conference, great. It's usually an academic conference too. So network. And then the third thing, which is the elusive thing, and I stink at it, so don't ask me how to do it, is to balance work and life. That's the ever elusive thing. Every year, the good thing about education is there's kind of a natural do-over cycle, right? Every year we begin again.
Yep.
So every year I start the year with, okay, this time it's going to be different. This time I'm going to exercise 5 days a week and I'm going to get 7 hours of sleep. And then when I don't do it that year, the next year, I'm going to do it better this year. So I'll let you know when I've arrived.
Well, that's the selflessness of what we do, because we put others before us. And that's unfortunate, the part of leadership that nobody tells you about when you're sitting in the classroom, because it's not all book and theory. It's all about practicality and relational things. So thank you so much for saying that. So Donna, your campus has received a national blue ribbon status. What ingredients did you and your staff use to reach that honor?
Oh, wow. Okay. You're all over the place tonight. So, all right. Well, I would point to 2 things in particular that led to our school earning that award. First thing we did was improve student learning noticeably and remarkably across the years. And the way we did that was that we are very data centered. So every single year, my leadership team, which is all of my department heads, come together for a full day in the summer. This is how it starts off every year. And we analyze the heck out of every piece of data we can get our hands on. Obviously, standardized test scores for days, but other things too. Attendance data, discipline data, internal benchmark data, school culture data, how students have responded to surveys as they're graduating from our high school about their preparedness for college and the world of work. Every measure we can collect, we analyze, and we look for what are we doing well with and where do we need to improve. And we craft our continuous improvement plan, because this is all about growth, right? We're always learning and growing, every one of us, until the day we die. We're learning and growing. And so as a team of teachers, we're learning and growing and honing our craft and doing a little bit better each year than hopefully than we did the year before. And so in so doing and keeping our focus on that, those goals, and measuring how are we doing with these things that we said we were going to work on, daily, weekly, reporting out every month to each other, how are we doing? We really improved student learning. So that was thing 1. course, we know it's all about, not all about data. It's also about the relationships and the culture. So the other thing that I'm very, very proud of is that our school is very familial, and very warm and welcoming, to the whole school family. And so and I can't take credit for that. That was true of HK, of Haddam Killingworth, before I got there. I'm just delighted to be part of it and to continue to nurture that culture. So we are small enough to personalize learning in pretty extraordinary ways. We had a blended learning program just before COVID hit, which thank God we did, because some of our teachers had learned how to blend online learning with in-person learning, and thankfully, so they ended up being sort of the mentors to the rest of us who were having to scramble to get on board. So we did that. We have an internship program. We have 26 college credit bearing classes. Anything that we can do to make education enticing to the kids that we serve, to connect with them. Most of our teachers coach a sport or lead a club. 85% of our kids are involved in at least one thing, if not more than one club or activity. So I would say that our school family is just all in, and it's a wonderful place to work. Teachers tend to come here and stay here. Families tend to stay in town to raise their children. So it's just a great place to be. So between the familial feel of our school and the fact that you can have your warm fuzzies and your great school culture and still lead students to learn and have fantastic outcomes. We were a school of distinction in the state of Connecticut, led us to earn the blue ribbon. So that was a team event, that was a complete team effort. And you can't accomplish things like that if you don't have a very gifted circle of teachers and paras and custodians and secretaries and everybody just all rowing in the same direction. So
boom. Yep. Drop the mic right there, because you just named on all the finer intricacies that a great organization has. And then you put that family culture right on top of that, and all of a sudden being all in. I mean, to me, that's what makes a great school.
Hey, Donna.
Yes, Josh.
After all these accomplishments and all the greatness that you do for your kids, what's next? What keeps you going? What's next and what keeps you going?
Well, right now, what's next is August 30th. School starts again. So, here we go again. And, tomorrow I will meet with the district administrators. The superintendent will lead us in our administrative retreat and kind of buckling down and figuring out, okay, what are our heavy lifts this year and where do we go from here? What are our challenges? What are our strengths? Kind of come together as a community of leaders and go again. So I'm really into the cycle of school. I really like that every year is a new beginning, and you bring in those freshmen that I swear every year look younger. I don't know. Last year's crop looked 7 years old, but maybe it's just me that's getting older. Don't tell. But I just love the cycle of beginning again and watching them grow and then sending them off at graduation and knowing they're all going to be great and that we were part of that.
Is that what keeps you going? Their smiles, that transition from freshman level to their senior year, walking across that stage, seeing that mom screaming for their child as they get that diploma and walk across that stage?
I love to see the kids cross the stage who both just rocked school and they were just big personalities in school and they loved it and we're all in. And I love watching the kid cross the stage who never thought he or she would, or who we had to drag across the stage, because every year there's some, the ones that you've watched grow from being sort of disenfranchised and crabby and a little bit lost, because aren't we all at 14, to really having an idea of what they want to do and knowing that they were loved by the humans in this building and in their own way and in their own time, turning around and saying, hey, thanks.
Donna, Edwin Garcia said this right here. How do we all come together? And I think there are a lot of mixed ingredients to make a school come together. And I think it takes time. I think it takes a very succinct roadmap. I think it takes a common understanding of what the center core of what you do is understanding that it's all about kids' experiences. And from there, you create your ladders, your heavy lifts, where you're going to go in order to build your own roadmap. You talked about school culture. School culture makes or breaks a school. There's no doubt about it. Teachers feeling as though they're empowered, that they have the ability to make choices, that they have voice and choice in everything that they do, and that they are there to present to the kids at the highest level they can. These things take time sometimes. So any of these new principles that are out there, you're not going to come in overnight and change the culture of a school. It's going to take some time. You're going to have a really good roadmap to ensure that you stay on it. And I love that you said, Donna, monthly check-in to see where you're at with your data growth, with your school growth. That is something that we miss because we go so fast in education. We stop and we don't think about doing those check-ins to ensure that we're making our marks, we're hitting our benchmarks. Because you talk about continuous growth. That's the only way that you can continuously grow, is by hitting those benchmarks and then stretching a little further. And again, that excites me as a leader because that's what we do and that's what we're all about. And that's why we're on this call tonight. So just quickly, some closing thoughts for all educators from your perspective. I mean, between the three of us on this call right now, we probably have close to, I don't want to say this, I'm dating myself, about 65 years of leadership experience, give or take. Okay.
Yep.
What would we tell the educators or those future leaders of tomorrow to think about as they navigate from where they are now to being those school leaders? Because we have to look at our legacy, what we leave behind for the next group of people to make schools that Disney World evolution, because the change is inevitable. If we don't change, we will die and suffocate ourselves in education. We have to look at it that way. So what are your thoughts? What would you say?
So I'd say it's, we need to take heart. So this is, I get that there's attrition. I get that there is, we have a real teacher shortage. I understand that less and less people want to go into administration. And I understand, I understand all the whys. I really do. This is the noblest profession there is, in my opinion. We work in the noblest profession. We leave our children at home every day to go help raise somebody else's children. That's what we're doing. And if not us, then who? Who's going to do it? And what happens if we don't show up? So I think we need to take heart. I think we need to take a minute. I think we need to change how those of us who are getting discouraged and tired, and I get it. I am too some days, it ebbs and flows. We need to change the way we talk to ourselves about what we do and how tough our job is. Yep, it's tough. If it was easy, anybody could do it, and anybody can't do it. Only talented, called people can do it. And so those of us who can do it we must bring others to the fold. Like I started a group of kids this year who were handpicked by the faculty as, I think that kid could teach. I think he would be great at reaching kids. And I actually pulled these kids together. It was a team of about 30 students. And I said, you need to know that educators who are very proud of the work that they do and who I truly believe are part of a noble profession have actually named you as being a potential great teacher. What do you say? Would you be willing to take a course on, we're starting a class this year called If You Love It, Teach It, in partnership with the University of Connecticut. And it's essentially to grow the next generation of teachers, because we're not sending enough kids off to college to teach like we used to. And the teachers aren't going into the 092 programs, the training programs to be administrators. And so we need to, as we're doing our work, right? One more thing, but this is an important thing. As we're, tending our garden and picking the flowers, you need to be planting the seeds for the next crop. And you need to be watering those seeds and nurturing them and growing the next generation of teachers and leaders. We must do this. It's critical. And we've got it. We really do. So take heart.
Water the crop right there. And well said. Absolutely perfect. And you're absolutely right. Tomorrow's going to come, whether we're ready for it or not. And that's our job, whether we sit today, to ensure that we have people who are ready and that we recognize them. We've all been moved forward by somebody. Think back in your own career. Somebody pushed you. Somebody said, hey, leadership would be good for you. And think about that, what that looks like when you're giving back. So really good stuff right there, Donna. Thank you so much for saying that. Josh?
Donna, just look at some of the comments that are made right there. That's exactly why you're here, to start off the school year. It's beautiful. You're dropping that knowledge, and as I said, iron always sharpens iron. And I think that you sharpen a lot of iron across the United States today. Thank you very much for being here today. Did an awesome job. dropping that knowledge. Principal Cafela, thank you. Still staying till the end. Thank you very much. But you know what? Hey, Dean, it's not over.
Never over,
It's
Judge.
not over, Dean Packard. This Thursday, the Red Zone. This Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, the Red Zone. Advice from Mount Olympus. What does that mean? Well, you got to tune in to find out. Advice from Mount Olympus. So join us this Thursday, the Red Zone, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be there.
Hey, Donna, very quickly, one more question I have for you. When's the book coming? Because there's a whole trajectory of growth right here that you could probably impart on so many people in education. I know you got to find time to write one, but
Oh Lord, I don't know when that will be.
not
There's
going
a lot
down that
of
road.
thoughts in here, so I don't know when.
Yeah, well, maybe someday, right down
Maybe
the road.
someday.
Hey, listen, on behalf of Josh and myself, Donna, we want to say thank you very much. Again, not only the 2022 Connecticut Principal of the Year, but the NASSP's Principal of the Year 2023. Just amazing, extraordinary awards for someone who's worked extremely hard. And you know what I learned about you tonight, Donna? You're humble. You do your job the right way. Servant leadership is at the core of what you do. And I tell you what, I think there's a heck of a lot more coming your way before it's over. So thank you so much for joining
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate being on.
It was a lot of fun. For all you guys out there, make sure you retweet this show. I'll tell you, there's a lot of nuggets here that's going to make us all a bit better. But other than that, have a great week. Remember, we serve children first, and the rest take care of itself. Have a great night, everybody. Hold on for a second, Donna, if you could. And everybody, take care.
My face is hurting. I keep on smiling.